Kal Kadosh, Boker, Or. Masechet Batra Daf Yomi. Masechet Batra Daf Yomi. Daf Pe Amud Ale. 180A1. Says the Mishnah, we're starting a new Mishnah. Halokech perot shovach mechavero. If you're going to acquire from your friend the yonim, which the yonim are, which the yonim, which the yonim are, the perot of the shovach. Mafriach berecha rishona. You're going to place the first zug of the vladot to be with the mother, right? Perot kaveret, and we're talking about now the perot kaveret. Notel shosha nechilim sares. You're going to take 3 of the gedudim of the dvorim, and then you're going to be misares. Right? One second. So basically, what are we trying to say now? We're trying to say that if you're going to take the perot shovach from your friend, so therefore here the perot shovach, he's saying is when you're selling it, right? You're selling that which is going to be born later on, not that actual shovach in itself, meaning not the yonim which are found there now. You're selling it for the future, basically. Now, to do with the perot kaveret, which is basically the bees, only the first 3 that come out, meaning the first 3 gedudim, I don't know, legions, I don't even want to say that exactly, right? Those are the ones which are that important. After that, it's not that much, okay? Meaning they're not as important. So basically the same thing, by the way, it's like the army, right? The first ones in the army, there's like, those are the, the top ones, you understand? After that already, the legions behind which are coming, now it's a little bit different, because now they go in different places. It's like a little bit different the way that their formation. But in the older days, you used to have all the armies, they used to come and it used to be like a whole bunch of groups. Okay? Fine. Says the Mishnah, Chalot Dvash, Maniach Shte Chalot, right? So the Chalot Dvash, you're going to place, right? The 2 Chalot Dvash, right, of the Kaveret. And then he says, in the team, Lakutz is going to come and to cut, right? And to use the word, Maniach Shte Grofiot. You're going to have 2 branches, right? We just said it, branches. Yeah? Fine. So says the Gemara. Okay? Gemara on Pe Amud Aleph. The Tanya, we learned in a Braita, if you're going to purchase now Perot Shovach, you're going to Mafriach Brecha Rishona Ushniya, which means, right, that you have to buy the rest of it, right? He says the 2 Brechot Rishonot. Now, this is against the Mishnah, because we said, Alokech Perot Shovach Mechavero, Mafriach Brecha Rishona, right, which is basically going to be the first one only. And here it says, Rishona Ushniya, the first one and the last one. Yeah? So what's going on? So Amar of Kahana says of Kahana Lakashya. It's not a question. He says, Ha'Allah ve'ha'leima. He says, the Brecha Shniya is talking about the Brecha Rishona, which he's leaving for the seller. Which means that the Lokeach comes and he leaves for the seller the Brecha Rishona, that is going to be after, right, the Brecha Rishona Shumaniach. So he says, when it says Brecha Rishona, which is brought down in the Mishnah, that is talking about Leima. What does it mean exactly, Leima? Leima means, right, the yonim which are already found in the Shovach, which means whether the Mishnah or the Braita, they are all maskimim, right, that they come, right, that they were going to leave it there, the Shovach, only the Brecha Rishona. The only thing is, what does it mean now, Brecha Shniya? Is the Brecha Shniya that you're leaving for the seller, or you're giving it to the, how do you call this, for the buyer, that you're leaving it for the buyer? Okay? But it's Dor Shani. So says the Gemara, Maishna Ima, right? Why is it that only we're talking about now, right, the mother, right? It's enough just to have the first one, and then that's it. The mitztavta brata ve'azuka de shavkinala, that it should have a chevra, with a daughter, with a ben zug. And therefore, that's what you need, the tzavtot. You need a tzevet. What does that mean? You need people to be together, ensemble. Yeah, what does that mean? You have everyone, they're doing things together. Right? He says, Ihinami, so too the daughter also needs the ima and the zuga, the shavkinala. Right? So he comes and he says this. He says, Ima abrata mitztavta. Brata ima lo mitzavta. He says, a mother on the daughter, that's a tzevet. That's a tzavta. Right? Why? Because she's always connected to her daughter. And therefore she has a lot of mercy on her daughter. And therefore it's enough for the mother that she has a tzevet of the daughter, right? In order that she's not going to run away from the shovach. but the daughter through the mother, en la tzavta. What does it mean? That's why the bat also needs her children. And it's not just enough the tzavta imam. Mean like this. If you have, right, one more time, you have the original mother. Yeah, she has a daughter. For her daughter, it's already enough that she's not going to run away. Why? But she has her daughter there. So she has her daughter and she has her zug. That's all that she needs. She doesn't need anything else. However, though, the daughter herself, right, even if she has her mother there, if she doesn't have her children with her, she's not going to stay. She'll run away. Right? Which is natural. I'm saying at the end of the day, right, a person becomes attached to their children more than their parents. It's a natural tendency. A person always loves their children more than their parents. The parent always loves the child, but also that child loves the grandchild. You know what I mean? And that's even going to be more than the grandparent. That's why there was a famous Gemara. You remember that the Gemara says that the father, he went and he gave food to the son, and the son went and he gave the food to his son. So he went and he said, I don't understand you. Why don't you have mercy on me and you give it to your son? So you should have just said to your father that you should have kept it. But it's a natural tendency that a person, right? David HaMelech. Fine. Yeah. Yeah. But again, that's the concept. Fine. 2 dots. Okay. Halokach perot kaveret. We're talking about now perot kaveret. Right? The beehives. Right? Notel shoshan echilim musares. You're going to take the 3 first gidudim, the first 3 legions of the bees. Okay, and then you're going to be misares. Okay. So now the 2 dots says perot kaveret. You're going to take the 3 nichalim misares. How are you going to be misares the devonim? How do you castrate? No, castrate the devonim. Amar Rabbi Mashul bechardal. You give them a chardal. Exactly. You give them a chardal, and by giving them the chardal, they become that they can't have more children. Dijon is like the spicy mustard, the good mustard. You know. So he says, Amri b'Marava, they come and they said in Eretz Yisrael, Mishmed Rabbi Yosef Chadina, right? Lo chardal mesarsan, ela mitoch shepien chad chozro ve'ochlot edu shalem. He says, no. He says, what happens is that since the chardal is so spicy, right? So it doesn't actually make them into a sadis. What happens is that it becomes mar, and then they come and they eat their own dvash, and therefore that's going to cause that they're not going to do pidavivia. That's why, right? The woman knows. She just gives him a lot to eat. He's already, he's bashamayim. He doesn't bother her. לא, אז הוא יאכל את זה בגלל הוא רעב, וזה מה שאתה נותן לו לאכול, ואז פתאום, הוא צריך לרוץ בחזרה בשביל... אוקיי?
למה אתה לא רוצה שיתרבו כאילו?
כן, לא יודע למה. האמת, it's a good question. Why do you want to be מסרס? Let's see.
לא, יש סיבה, הוא מסביר תכף. כי הרי הנה, לפי ההלכה, אסור לסרס שום בעלי חיים. הוא לא מסרס אותם, אבל זה העניין. לפי הרמב"ם, הוא לא מסרס אותם. הוא לא מסרס אותם. רמב"ם, איסורי ביאה. זה העניין, שהוא לא מסרס אותם. זה החוכמה.
You didn't do. So until here, this is what they said, that they eat their own dvash and then they're not going to do pidyav rivya. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, "Notel shosha nechilim besirus." What does that mean? You're going to take a sirugin, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th, and the other ones you're going to sell. Meaning, it's nothing to do with sirus of, castrating. It has to do with sirugin. You know, when you do netilat tadam sirugin, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. There's a thing 1, 2, like that. Yeah. So you're going to take 1, 3, 5. That's called sirugin. Okay. We learned also in a braita. נוטל 3 נחילים בזה אחר זה, ומכאן ואילך נוטל אחת ומניח אחת. And from then on, you're going to take 1, you're going to leave 1. Fine. חלות דבש, מניח 2 חלות. חלות דבש, you're going to leave 2 חלות. So he says, רב כהנא comes and he says, דבש בחברת, and you say, מדי מאכל לעולם. You know the דבש, right, which is found in the kaveret, you're never going to take, what does that mean? Even when the devorim are going to eat it, and therefore it's mekabel tuma, just like ochel. Okay, that means when you have honey in the beehive, it's mekabel tuma. So he says alma kasaver. So you see from here that we hold lo ba'em achshava. You don't even have to prepare it to become mekabel tuma. So meitvei. So they're going to ask the following question. Yeah, meitvei. They're going to ask another question. Dvash bechaveret eno lo keochel velo kemashke. The dvash which is going to be in the kaveret, it's not going to be considered not food and not drink. So Rabbi says, what are we dealing with? We're talking about the 2 chalot. What does that mean? You remember that we said that there's going to be two chalot dvash that you're going to leave for the bees during the entire chodef, meaning you can't leave the bees without food during wintertime. So what you have to do is you have to leave over in their beehive, you have to leave over 2 chalot dvash, for them to eat. They're going to be their food for the entire chodef. So these chalot are not mekabel tuma. Why? Because the human being is never going to eat it. But Rav Kahana was talking about the ones which are going to be for ma'achal adam. Ma'achal adam, anything which a human being is going to be eating, that yes. But if not, no. Rava comes and he says, Rabbi Eliezer. It's Rabbi Eliezer. Okay? It's Rambam, we learned in the Mishnah. Pei Amud Bet, 80b. The Tram we learned in the Mishnah, Kaveret Dvorim. Rabbi Eliezer says, Karka. It's considered like karka for everything. And therefore, Kotvim Alav Pruzbul. You're going to write a Pruzbul. Ve'ena mekabel Tumah, and it's not going to be mekabel Tum'ah. Bimkomah. Okay? Barodem imena dvash. Now he comes and he says, you're going to come and you're going to put, right? You're like tolesh tzemach me'akarka. You're going to be chayav chatat. Chachamim come and they say, Kotvin Alav Pruzbul. You're not going to write a Pruzbul. Ve'ena kekarka. It's not going to be considered karka. Mekabel Tumah bimkomah. It's going to be mekabel Tumah. Barodem imena Shabbat. Patur. You're going to be patur. So Amar Rabbi Elazar says Rabbi Elazar. My ta'amad Rabbi Elazar. One more time. We just said that kaveret dvorim is considered karka, and if meaning the beehive is considered the ground, so it's considered a ground. Remember, you could write a prosbol. Remember, in order to write a prosbol, which is that it's not going to cancel out the shemitah, you need karka. It's not mekabel tum'ah. If you're going to be rodem min Shabbat, you're going to be chayav, but you're detaching from the ground, right? You're going to be chayav chatat. Chachamim say no, it's not karka. Amar Rabbi Elazar says Rabbi Elazar. My ta'ama. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Eliezer? What's the reasoning of Rabbi Eliezer? It says, "Vayitbol ota biarot advash." V'chima inyan ya'ar etzel. What's the inyan of a ya'ar etzel advash? He says, what's the connection? So he says this. He says, "Ela lomar lecha ma ya'ar tolesh min mishmar chayav chatat." Just like the ya'ar, if you go to the forest and you took out something, you're going to be chayav chatat. So to dvash, you're going to be chayav chatat. Also, you're going to be chayav chatat. Fine. Meitvei. We're going to ask the following question. Dvash hazav mikavarto. Eno lo ke'ochel velo ke'mashke. It's not going to be considered not ochel and not mashke. So he says, Bishlema le'abayenicha. Right? So one second. So he's saying it's not ochel, it's not mashke. So therefore it's not mekabel tumah. If it's not going to be food, it's not mekabel tumah. So he says, Bishlema le'abayenicha. I understand according to Abaye that he's going to say, right, that we're talking about the 2 chalot which were staying behind for the other bees. Because the lo ochel velo mashke, the shum davar, the bishul advorim. Fine. Ela le Rava, but according to Rava, Kashia, we have a question. So Amar Zvid, why? Because Rava, he didn't say that. He didn't want to say that we're talking about the 2 chalot that are leaving over for the dvash, for the dvorim. So what are you going to say then? So Amar Zvid, shezav al gabe klimaus. He says, no, we're talking about where the honey went on top of a disgusting type of a utensil, and therefore that's why it's not considered ochel, right, or mashke, and that's why he says until you're choshev that you want to use it as a mashke. Meaning sometimes you have a liquid or you have something, there you need machshava, because since it went on something ma'us, there you need machshava. But derech halal, lo tzarich machshava. Here, tzarich machshava.
אז אם הוא נופל לקלימאוס, אז כן היה אוכל?
אם כן מה? לא, לא, אבל אם אתה כן רוצה לאכול את זה, אפילו אם זה נפל למשהו מאוס, אתה צריך לחשוב עליו.
הבנו, אבל אם זה לא יכול נופל לקלימאוס, אז כן זה נפח לאוכל?
ודאי, זה האוכל מיד.
אז כן יהיה בטומאה. ולמה שחיה עושה בו זה לא טומאה ובן אדם כן?
So Rav Acha Bar Yaakov comes and he gives another answer. He says, Kigon, zav al gabe kaskasim. He says that it fell, the dvash, on pieces of wood, where it's very difficult to collect it. And therefore, that's why it's not considered ochel, unless you're choshev that you're actually going to collect it. Why? If it falls, so that's it. You're not going to come, start collecting. So therefore, that's it. It's not considered ochel. Unless, bemet, you do want to take it for ochel. Okay? Meitvei. So we're going to ask the following question. Dvash bekavarto. Eno lo ochel velo mashke. He says the dvash which is found in the kaveret is not considered not ochel no mashke. Chishev alav lachila. If you did think about it for food, it's metamet tumat ochlim. Lemashkin, if you wanted to drink it, it's not metamet tumat mashkin. Right? Sorry, if it's for mashkin, it is going to be metamet tumat mashkin. So he comes now and he says like this. I understand that according to Baye, we're talking about the 2 chalot, right? So therefore, what happens is if you're choshev alehem mefurash, it makes sense. Meaning, even though those two chalat vash are supposed to stay for the breeze, right now you're thinking, no, I'm gonna. So okay, so you thought in your mind and you're gonna make it ochel. But according to Rava, what's the pshat then? Kasha. So Amalek Rava is going to tell you, Talitzachi is going to say that the way that we're going to answer the Braita is Chishev alav la'achila eno metumet tumat ochlin lemashkin eno metumet. If you thought that you wanted to use it for food, it's still not going to be metumet tumat ochlin. And if you thought it for drink, it's still not going to be metameh for tumat mashkin, right? Which means that the fact that it's not considered not ochlin, not mashkin, even if you did think about it, it's still not going to help. And Tani kavet Rav Kahana, dvash bekaverto metameh tumat ochlin shelo b'machshava, even without machshava. Okay, fine. Okay, next, 2 dots. The 2 dots says zeitim lakutz maniach shte grofiot. If you remember, if somebody's going to purchase, right, the olive trees, so therefore to cut it down, so you have to leave 2 branches behind. Okay, that's what we said. So Tanu Rabbana, we learned in the Braita, if you're going to come and you're going to purchase a tree from your friend, in order to cut it down and to use the wood, you have to leave at least a tefach from the geza. Meaning, right, you have the trunk, from the trunk upwards, you have to have a minimum of a tefach. He says, right, v'kotzes, and then you cut it down. Right? Why? Because that way it's still going to grow again. Meaning if you cut it too close to the roots, it's never going to grow. So you have to leave over a certain amount in order they'll still grow.
In every single tree or this specific tree?
Well, here we're talking about, it says here, a tree.
No, Azeo.
Tree.
אבל תראה פה הוא נותן.
Now, 1 minute, tree.
And you said you have
But-
to leave 2 behind. 2.
What about now betulat shikma? Betulat shikma is basically an etz, right? It's a type of a fig tree, right? He says that it's not, that it doesn't get, so he says, so therefore you have to leave 3 tfachim from the karka in order, meaning this type of a fig tree, you need higher up in order for it to grow again. So you cannot cut until a tefach, you have to cut until shloshat tfachim. Okay, that is the shikma. What about sadana shikma? He says sadana shikma is now the shikma, which is right. Nikere kvar v'nitaveh, where that means that they became thickened. So there it's 2 tfachim. Okay, that's going to be 2 tfachim. Now he says bekanim u'begefanim. Now when we're talking about reeds and the grapes and everything, mina pkak ulmala, we're talking about from the kesher abovewards, and the kalim varazim choferum sharesh, right there by a dekel, by a palm tree or an erez or a cedar tree, you go all the way to the bottom. Why? If we sheng gizon machlif, because basically once you cut them, they never grow again. So therefore, you just completely uproot it from the ground. Meaning, if you're going to come and you're going to take the palm tree, go palm tree kaddish. That's it. There's nothing what to do. It's not going to start again. So therefore, that's it. Fine. Legabe betulat shikma, right? Remember, we're talking about now betulat shikma. We said it's going to be 3 tfachim, right? Well, meaning we have a contradiction. You never do it on shvit. But that's considered an avodah, right? It's considered work. You know what work is? Yeah. So he says, right? Rabbi Yehuda says, you're not allowed to do it normally. But right? He says, or you cut it at the same length of at the same height of the ground, right? Flush, right? Why? Because basically, when you're going to do it in such a fashion, it's not considered avodah. Remember, on shvit, you're not allowed to work. But if it's not avodah, it's mutar. So this is considered avodah or not. He says dafka in such a way because if you're going to cut it mamash on the ground, it's going to damage it. But it mashma in any other way, right? Until it's going to actually be good for it, which means that it's going to grow again. So why did you say that you needed 3 tfachim ma'ala karka? You don't need 3 tfachim ma'ala karka. Even mashma, even you could probably even do a flush or whatever, and it's still going to be good. So Amar Abaye comes and he says, Shlosha tfachim ma'alele. Yeah, for the 3 tfachim, for sure it's going to be good, right? That it could grow again. But when it's going to be exactly on the level of the line, it's more difficult. Meaning, according to the height that you left behind in the tree, is it going to be easier or more difficult for it to grow again, to reproduce itself? You understand? And that's the way it is. I remember I had a tree, right? And we had to tent the house. So the guy goes, "Nah, don't worry about it. Right? You could tent it. It's going to grow back." Right? We tented it. It killed the tree. Right? Afterwards, the guy comes and he says, "Listen, the gardener, and I wasn't the guy that was Kilu selling it to me, right? That's Kilu, don't worry about it." So the gardener comes and he goes to us, listen, I'm going to cut some branches and hopefully it's going to grow. But it's, and guarantee that it's going to grow again. You understand? So he did it. On certain parts, you had a little bit of flowers, but it looked terrible. They killed the tree. There was nothing left. So he just uprooted the tree. That's what it is. So it all depends. Right? What can you do? Yeah. So he says, right? It's not going to come and it's not going to bring it up. Right? To do a shvit, right? For sure, we're going to do something which is not good for it. Meaning, to do it buying and selling, you're always going to do good things to it. But to do a shvit, you're always going to do something which is not good for it. Because if it's good for it, so then you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. Okay? Fine. If you remember, we mentioned that if you have a dekel, a palm tree or a cedar tree, you're going to go until the bottom. Why? Because it never grows again. So it says, you're going to tell me the cedar tree doesn't grow again. Well, what does that mean? Right? Because we just said tzadik katamar yifrach. So why does it say keres? Why is it written tamar? So he says, if it was written only the cedar tree, right? And it was not written the tamar, we would say, meaning you would say, listen, you're learning it from the, right? From the, how do you call this? From the eres. Eres is a cedar tree, there's no fruits. So if you would have said, just like the cedar tree does not make fruits, so to here it does not make fruits. That's what it says the dates, and the dates comes in and gives you fruits. But if it was only written the tamar, why doesn't it say, and it wasn't said eres? I would say tamar and gizo machlif. The tamar comes from a date tree and gizo machlif. So to the tzaddik and gizo machlif, which means they will not have a child that's like him. So therefore, kach neman eres to teach you that it's also going to be gizo machlif. So too, that means basically the tzaddik could always have children, and the children could be like him as well. Which means gizo machlif plus, right? He's going to have oseh perot. Okay, so you're right. It all depends what type of a cedar tree. Okay, there's 10 types of cedar trees. Shneimar, Erez stam is the first one, but then you have a whole bunch of other ones. So there's 10 types of Erez. Yeah, you understood? There's 10 types of cedar trees. You have Erez, right, which is the Arza. Shita, which is Tunita. Hadas is the Asa, right? Et Shamin is the Farsima, right? The Parsimon, right? The Brosh is Brati. Tidhar is Shagan. And Tashur is Shruina. So says the Gemara, but that's only 7. Did you count? One more time. Erez, Shita, Hadas, Et Shemin, Berosh, Tidhar, Utashur. That's 7. It's not 10. So he says, Kiata Ravdini Amar, when Ravdini came, he went and he said in Eretz Yisrael, Hosifu Alehem, Alonis, Almonis, Almugis. They added on another 3. Alonis is Butni. Where are you? Yeah. Alonim, Almonim, and Almugim. So he says Alonim is Butne, Almonim is Balute, and Almugim is going to be Kesita. So those are the extra 3, which is very, very expensive. So that's what he says. Those are the extra 3 that we mentioned. Because and some people say it's Aronim, Almonim, Almugim. Aronim is Are, which is a Daphna, another type of here he says, yeah, Daphna. Almonim is Dulbe, right, which is Armon, right, the chestnut, right, and Almugim is Kesita. So again, these are just the different types of, again, all types of different.